Hi guys, Yuki here, back with Seduce Me 2, the Demon War. Diana's Route Part 2. This is probably going to be slightly shorter than most because I have company over and I don't want to make them kind of wait too long. Anyways, let's get to it. Don't kill me, Sero. Hug her closer. I hugged her to me, trying to give her energy through my body. However, as I tried, Sarah pulled Diana away from me and lifted her head to kiss her. As their lips locked, Diana's hands unconsciously moved and cupped and cupped Sarah's cheeks. Pull her away? I didn't trust Sarah one bit, and I didn't want him kissing Diana, even if he was doing it to give her energy. I grabbed Diana and pulled her back to me, wrapping our arms around her and glaring at Sarah hard.
What?
I can give him... Okay, it's been too long. I can give her energy just fine. I could feel the poisonous tone in my voice slither into each word as I said to Sarah. However, as I finished speaking and as the look in Sarah's eyes switched from surprise to anger, Diana began to stir in my arms. Diana? Diana slowly opened her eyes and looked to me, dazed but still growing a small smile on her face. Diana slowly lifted herself up onto her feet. Instinctively, Sarah and I both grabbed onto Diana's arms, helping her up. She looked to both of us with a kind smile.
Thank you.
I feel like kind of, I feel like guilty. We're just kind of fighting over for her. I couldn't tell which of us she was thinking, but I accepted it with a smile of my own. You did it, Diana. You drove him back. Diana chuckled a bit before standing up straight. Her wings that had been folded against her back splayed out behind her near us, causing Sarah and I to step back. As Diana began to speak, her voice booming through the air and the cheers around us became silent.
Friends! We have won this battle, but they will not be gone for long. This is the beginning of a war to end tyranny, to end chaos!
I could tell that every demon in the area had their ears and hearts open to Diana. I felt myself become full of courage just from listening to her speak.
You have shown great courage today, but you must build even more for the war ahead. The Demon Lord will try to cut you down, but we will prevail! As I am the last living heir to this grand kingdom, I swear unto you all that I will fight until the very end and free this world of the evil that is the Demon Lord. With this, I urge you to stand with me and fight by my side, not as my subjects, but as my brothers and sisters. I ask now, who will stand with me?
The sounds that came after was loud and eardrum piercing. The sound of 1,000 cheers beat through the air and showed the allegiance of every demon in the area, and then some. I could only stare in awe as Diana took in everyone's cheers and took in a heavy breath. It was then that I knew that I had become a part of something grand at the sight of a woman who would change history. The following days were full of chaos. The Demon Lord tried to come back and reclaim his pride, but Diana somehow managed to press back with ease, giving him more wounds than inflicted before. It was like the castle became an impregnable fortress. Soon, word spread throughout the neighboring kingdoms of the Demon Lord's defeat and continued failed attempts to attack. Many leaders sent messages of allegiance, which Diana humbly accepted, and soon enough we drove the Demon Lord's army far back away from us. After every battle, she would wind up in my arms, much to the slightly obvious disapproval of Sarah. However, a demon questioned my presence. Whenever a demon questioned my presence, Diana would simply wave them off with a small token of praise towards me.
She is my most honored guest, and she is here to help us win this war.
Not to mention, I'm basically like a Duracell battery. Charger. Yeah. Still, the thought of what we officially were began to make me concerned. Did Diana see me more than an energy source and an ally? We had kissed before we returned, but since then I couldn't have been more unsure. I began to question myself. Why was I here? I could only shake my head in response. I shouldn't doubt anything. We were in the midst of a war, and with Diana at the front, she had many responsibilities, many that I could never even hope to think on. Well, we did become the Demon Queen once, so we kind of know what's going on. The pinnacle moment of our relationship, however, came when a brute demon stormed into the castle all on his own. He was unarmed and carrying a single item, which made many demons step away from him in fright. Diana, Sarah, and I were in the war room with 3 other beings whom I had named Faye, Rabbit, and Shadow for simplicity. When the doors to the room swung open, everyone was forced to turn their heads from the map we were previously poring over.
What is...
All protests became silent as the being who entered chucked the object in his hand onto the table. As it settled to a stop in the middle of the map, all of the demons in the room stared in absolute shock. Is it his horn? Oh my god! Lying on the table was a red broken horn. There was no blood or bone in it, but it was indeed the horn of the being who had stormed in. I became confused, wondering why this being decided to throw his horn at us. That must have been really painful. As I looked to Diana, however, I could see the shock in her eyes. The expression on her face was a mixture of fear, surprise, and a little flattery, like someone had given her an exotic bouquet of bloody thorn-filled roses. Now we know the story behind, Sergeant's horn? Diana finally looked up at the demon who had entered the room and examined him.
Brute demon. What is the meaning of this?
What does it look like?
It looks like you're swearing your allegiance to the rebellion. The question is why?
He swore allegiance with his horn?
It's a brute demon tradition. If they leave their tribe to serve a non-nomadic kingdom without marrying into it, then they must break a horn in allegiance.
That's terrible. But, very flattering.
However, from what I recall, there are no more tribes left in the demon world after the demon lord's mass genocide of the brute demons.
I stared wide-eyed at Shadow. Mass genocide? The demon lord had that much power to eliminate an entire demon race? I looked to the brute demon, seeing him glare hard at Shadow at his remark.
Well, he didn't kill everyone.
So there are more of you?
Oh. A flash of grief flashed in the brute's eyes before he looked down at the table.
No, I'm the only one left, and I refuse to let that bastard get away with this.
I felt incredibly terrible for the grief he had to bear. It must have been horrible to be the last of his kind. I looked to Diana, wondering what she would do with this information. The look on Diana's face was enigmatic? Okay, she was obviously in deep thought, but how was she going to handle the situation for her? Finally, she took in a deep breath and let it aside before speaking.
Sir Brute, you come swearing your allegiance to the rebellion. Is there anything you demand of us for your service?
He wants to lead, train people in his ways. He wants to lead a small group of soldiers as his own. It was a question she asked every alliance leader. They often asked for the promise of freedom or an oath of protection from harm. The demons who were with us in the room simply joined out of their own interests. What about this demon? The brute demon rolled his shoulders back and stared hard at Diana, making her straighten up a bit.
I ask for you to perform ascending.
Huh?
Ascending?
For the souls of your people?
The brute nodded before stepping up and placing his large hand on the table, staring at the back of it in torn shame.
My people did not deserve death, but their ashes now lie in the earth. There is no one who can give them a proper sending, so I ask that you, Succubus, do this for me in return for my service.
I looked to Faye, hoping that they would explain, but Diana turned to me and spoke instead.
Dear, ascending is a ritual brute demons perform to honor their deceased. It is a ritual of both celebration and grief, so it must be done with a full heart.
But we're in the middle of like a war. When will we have the time to do this? And will we be protected while this happens in case anything goes wrong? Huh? Oh, thanks. Diana smiled at me and nodded before turning back to the brute. I was happy that she was still willing to teach me despite her position. The brute, however, finally took notice of me and glared. I'm sorry, I'm so different from everybody else here, and that I'm useless, and that I should be out here in the war. I should be in my own place because this has nothing to do with me, but it kind of does at the same time.
A human? What is it doing here?
I'm not an it. Excuse me? It? I became suddenly irritated and stepped forward to confront the demon, but Diana placed a hand on my shoulder and cleared her throat.
She is a vital part of this war, Sir Brute. Please do not disrespect her.
I looked to Diana, seeing her press her lips together in a fine line and stare into the brute's soul. A part of me felt extremely flattered at her protection, however I could practically feel Sero's jealous aura from the other side of Diana. The brute took a hard stare at me before eventually nodding and crossing his arms.
So, will you do it?
Diana took a moment to herself, staring at the wooden table in thought. I began to ponder as well about it. He seemed to be a worthy ally, but Diana seemed torn. Was it appropriate for a demon who wasn't a brute to do it? You should do it? I placed my hand on Diana's shoulder, nodding and looked up at me in curiosity. If the brute wanted her to do it, then she should to gain a potentially powerful ally. I smiled and nodded to her as she slowly relaxed under my gaze. After a moment, Diana turned to the brute demon and nodded.
Very well. I will perform the sending of your fallen kin.
When?
This afternoon.
Everyone hitched their breath in surprise at Diana's words. She would perform the same day? Did she even know how to perform it properly? Diana? With a chuckle, Diana looked to me with a small smirk.
I'll be fine, dear. I know a fair amount of brute demon rituals.
The afternoon became full of hustle. Servants were rushing back and forth, trying to prepare for a ritual they knew little to nothing about. Luckily, Shadow and Rabbit helped instruct everyone properly. I was taken to my room, given an opportunity to rest, but as I sat on the bed, I felt restless. I didn't want to sit around and do nothing for the day. There was so much I could do despite being a human. I wasn't some decoration. I defied my instructions and wandered, hoping to find Diana. I wanted to help her if possible, and as I approached the room she was practicing in, I managed to catch a pair of voices.
My lady, I must insist.
Insist that I lock her in her room like a prisoner? Out of the question.
I quietly pressed myself against the wall near the doorway and continued to listen in, now wondering what was going on.
She is not a pet or a slave, Sero. She is my guest and greatest ally.
I understand this, but she's also a human. Every time someone new comes to forge an alliance with the rebellion, the human's presence is questioned.
If they are turned away by a mere human, then they are worthless allies.
My lady, you are not understanding my point.
Then what is the point, Sero?
Hey guys, Yuki here again. This is like what recorded like 2 days after. No, like probably Friday when I recorded the part where I was like, I can't really record much because I have people coming over or have guests here. And then in the middle of recording, they came here, so I had to stop. So I'm back here in this part right here. And it's probably a little further than this, but I'll have to hear because I don't remember how far in I was in last time. But I think it was around here. A small silence followed. I was in awe that Diana was defending me so hard. As for Sarah, I began to hear the jealous beast he was hiding. What was he going to do?
My point is that people are questioning what she is to you.
The question pained me to realize, but I was curious as well. What was I to her? She vouched for me as an ally, but did she like me as I liked her? I came with her to fix this world, but I truly came for her. After a painfully long silence, Diana spoke again.
I care for her. Very much so. Like I care for you, Sarah. She is very important to me, for many reasons. She has become part of my life, and anyone who questions why will be silenced. Is that enough to appease you?
It is not my place to be appeased.
I took a breath, taking in what Diana had said. She cared for me. I wasn't sure whether to feel happy or sad at that, but I had to take it in that she cared enough to protect and defend me. Oh well, hi Faye. I didn't get to feel the emotion for long, however, as Faye flew up beside me and grinned. I panicked for a moment, hoping that they wouldn't give away my position, but they whispered to me, understanding.
Psst. We're about to go prepare the ritual dance area thing. Whatever. Want to come watch?
I opened my mouth to object, but was stopped by Diana's voice.
Now, please, leave me be. I have to prepare, and cannot afford any more distractions.
I grimaced. I came to help, but I guess she had work alone. I left with Faye, not wanting to be caught by Sarah and understanding that she needed to be alone to work. This ritual seemed to be very important to her, and the brute demon that demanded it of her. In truth, I was excited to see Diana go through with it. The fact that she was willing to dance for the brute demon was surprising. When Faye and the handful of demons that helped them finished their work, I stood in the front line of a crowd surrounding the ritual area. To say that I was mildly nervous for her was an understatement. Did Diana even know how to do this sending? From what she insinuated to me as she brought me to my room, she would be given instructions and follow them to a T. Would she be able to do it? A small, quiet wave of gasps came towards my direction, causing me to look over at where they originated from. I stared wide at what I saw. Diana? Diana was dressed in some sort of dancer garb with purple paint all over her already tainted skin, shaping symbols around her body. In her hands were two large sabers glowing in the sunlight. She was absolutely stunning. Diana stepped between the crowd as they parted ways for her and into a chalk-drawn circle which separated the ritual area and the ones watching it. Her bare feet guided her to the center as a couple of other demons, each holding an instrument, stepped up near the edge away from her where I was. At last, the air was filled with complete silence. The look on Diana's face showed pure concentration and focus as she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The drums echoed through the air as the dance finally began. I stared, mesmerized by what I was watching. Diana's entire body moved in time with the beat and instruments floating through the air. The saber she was holding glided through the air as if they were slicing through it with a perfect ease. As the beat moved, her hips and shoulders rolled fiercely, like a hypnotic and passionate belly dance routine mixed with an African tribal step. However, her focus remained on the sabers in her hand and the circle she was instructed to dance within. Her bare feet hit the ground hard with her heels jutting into the dirt, not hard enough to disturb the soil, but loud enough to echo alongside with the drum beat. My breath was taken away by the sight. However, I wasn't the only one blown away by the dancing succubus.
She's beautiful, isn't she?
I didn't turn my head away, but I could tell that Sarah had stepped up to stand beside me and watch Diana dance. The two of us stood side by side, watching the person we both cared about giving homage to an extinct demon race. Sarah's voice was barely audible over the sound of the drums and chants in the air.
I love her.
I'm sorry. That stopped my thoughts. I looked over to Sarah to see his gaze still plastered towards Diana. His expression was cool and like stone, serious in what he had said and meant. He loved her?
I've loved her ever since we were children. I've been by her side through everything, and she's given meaning to my life. I would give my life for her if she demanded it.
At last, Sarah looked to me, a small fire burning in his eyes through his gaze. I could see the devotion and truth in his soul, knowing how deeply he cared for Diana.
What say you to that?
I love her too? Sarah was serious about his affections. So was I. Sarah stared wide-eyed as I smiled and nodded to him, understanding his feelings. I feel happy when I'm with her. She's taught me so much during the time we spent together. About demons and the 5 worlds, I can still hardly believe it all exists at once. I looked back at Diana, seeing her continue her dance with a concentrated expression. The more I thought of her, the happier I felt myself becoming. I thought of all she had done. Well, what she did was a tragedy. It was in desperation. She had no choice. I understood that and knew eventually that without that act, I would never have learned about this world or magic at all. Before I met her, my life was boring and bland. I went to school and was only allowed to think about my future. When Diana appeared, she changed my life. She showed me an entire new universe, and I will never be able to thank her enough for that. I know you've been with her for a very long time. But I understand your feelings for her perfectly. We both loved and cared for her. I could tell that Sarah deeply and truly loved Diana, but so did I. She had been so much for me already, and I found myself captured in her spell. Sarah had to have been the same. I was given silence as Sarah's reply. Diana's dance continued into the night, surprising me. She had this much stamina? Despite watching her, she didn't stop to break once, most likely expending energy to keep moving. How long did the dance have to go for? As the torchlights illuminated the space and the moon was at the top of the sky, Diana finally stopped, panting hard and clashing the sabers together to cause a ring of steel to bounce through the air. The audience clapped wildly, many deeply captivated enough to stay the entire time, as some joined in during the later hours of the ritual. The brute, whom I decided to dub as Sergeant, stepped from the crowd into the ritual space and walked towards Diana. Letting the sabers vanish into the air, Diana looked to the one approaching her with tired stare. Silence lingered between them as Sergeant held out his arm to Diana. With a smile, Diana reached out and clasped her hand onto his forearm.
Honorimus dirigendo pedes.
Victoria in consummatione.
Something about victory? Another round of cheers echoed through the air at the words exchanged between them. I smiled, knowing that Diana had a peace sergeant in his people. Oh, he will help lead them into victory. Yeah. Diana released her hold onto his hand and nodded to him before she looked towards me and ushered me to her. I quickly rushed over as she lifted her arm and placed it along my shoulders tiredly. Diana?
I need a little help.
Okay. I could feel Sarah's gaze on my back. Would he step in and fight me, doing as she asked? I looked back to see him watching with a blank expression. What was going on in his mind? With a laugh to exhaustion. Wait, I skipped like a whole sentence. With a laugh to Diana, I led her back to her room where she sat tiredly on the bed. The exhaustion on her face was clear and her body quaked from overexerting herself.
Ugh.
You dance so beautifully, Diana. With a smile, Diana looked up at me and blushed a bit. To see her face go a slight pink made her look so adorable.
You flatter me, dear.
I could only smile before she slowly stood back up and took my hand, surprising me. She kept her head down, however, which made me even more confused as to what she was doing. Diana?
Dear, I'm sorry.
Huh? For what? Diana grimaced a bit before looking up at me with serious eyes. They flicked back and forth between red and gold, but she stood her ground. Oh, she needs energy.
For the intolerance from my kind. Humans aren't exactly welcomed in this world.
That's what this was about. I understood completely. But it seemed to hit Diana the hardest. After all, she was the one who brought me to this world. I cupped Diana's cheek and smiled at her, causing her expression to go from shame to surprise. Diana, it's all right. I love you. Diana's hitched her breath. It was true, though. I had grown to love her for everything she had done. She was brave, powerful, beautiful, everything I desired in a person. My heart beat wildly for her, and I could only pray that she understood my feelings. Diana looked to her hands, eyes watering a little bit. I instinctively wiped her eyes a bit with my fingers, now concerned. Diana?
I don't know what love is.
Oh. Ouchies. I stared, dumbfounded. She didn't know what love was? However, she surprised me by placing a gentle shaking hand on my cheek, leaning in.
But I'm willing to learn, if it's with you.
Don't kill me, Sarah. I gasped slightly, seeing the earnest and care in her eyes before she closed them and gently planted a kiss on my cheek. A soft shudder ran down my spine as I felt her soft lips press against my skin. Kiss her? I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to kiss her. I pulled Diana closer and wrapped my arms around her neck, capturing her lips with my own. She gasped, surprised at my sudden eagerness, but slowly began to melt into the kiss between us. Her lips were as heavenly as the night I first tasted them. Her arms gently wrapped themselves around my waist, pulling me close to her slight body. The jangle of her brute dancer garb echoed in the room, making me smile slightly at the surprised noise. I had nearly forgotten that she was still in her dancer outfit. On their own, my fingers slowly danced down Diana's shoulders and traced over the seams of her outfit, making her body shudder ever so slightly. Was she enjoying a mere touch that much? Or was she hungry for energy? I pulled away slightly, seeing her eyes dance between red and gold, some control trying to be maintained within her gaze on me. She was out of energy and she needed more than just a kiss. For now, I would take it slow. Oh yeah, I'm so experienced. No, not even. I leaned back in and kissed her again, this time biting her lower lip and enticing her to let go of the control she had. I wanted her to relax and for me to be the one to comfort her and hold her against me. Maybe it was because of the call her succubus buddy had on me, or maybe it was because my heart desired to be with her that much. I didn't care, but I obeyed the command of my heart to drive her to the pleasure we both craved. The night would be for us, and the warmth of the afterglow would be exquisite. Diana released an almost carnal moan against my lips and tightened her grip on my waist, almost slamming my body against hers. My plan was working, and she was falling for my temptations. I couldn't help the smirk that painted itself across my face at the gesture. In return, I quickly rushed my hands up Diana's body and combed my fingers into her hair before gripping her horns. We already know what that does. Awkward. To my surprise, Diana released a moan against my lips, causing me to pull away and stare into Diana's surprised eyes. A blush ran across her cheeks, but her gaze melted into one of lessened desire as I held her horns in my grasp. Were her horns her weak spot? I gripped them harder. Okay. I was right. I pulled Diana closer to me with her horns and almost slammed my lips onto hers, wanting to devour the moan she was releasing. I felt myself become more passionate in the kiss between us, needing to feel more of her. Okay. Diana dug her nails into my hips and practically pushed me onto the bed behind me, causing us to bounce on the mattress. I reflexively released her horns and felt my hands fall back on either side of me as Diana smirked down at my form.
You're not playing fair.
I felt small warmth ignite in my core, pleading with me to ravish her again, but I felt myself become lost in her dominant gaze over me. I felt the clothing on my body become uncomfortable, and I wanted to take it all off beneath her, but I remained locked in her sight. Diana ran a hand along my cheek and traced a finger down my body, showing its dance over each curve it found lovingly and sent shivers up my spine. Look who's talking! I don't know. Diana chuckled before leaning in nose to nose with me.
Let me make you feel good.
At last, Diana became the one who initiated our kiss, her hands pressing down on my waist to pin me in the bed beneath us. I wrapped my legs around her waist, pulling her to me and causing a chuckle to echo from between our lips. As her hands began to comb over my skin and tug my shirt off of my body, I felt her pull away to strip it off of me. It was tossed to the side to be forgotten, for our focus remained on each other. I felt myself turn red at what we were slowly diving into. Taking in the fact that I had initiated a dance with the succubus I had grown to love. It was unfair that she was in control, but it was only natural. I had barely noticed the garb over Diana's body disappearing, leaving her bare over me. Despite the purple taint over her skin covering her essentials, I could tell that she was still very much nude just from the heat between us. Diana's kisses trailed down my cheek and neck, nipping over my skin and making the warmth within my core burn even hotter in me. Every kiss and touch she placed on me made my mind spin and dance in endless waves of soft euphoria. I knew that this wasn't her first time being intimate, but I could tell that every touch she made she only did for me and my own pleasure. She truly indeed intended to make me feel good. I became like putty in her hands, my own eventually resting above my head as I let her strip me bare and massage every inch of my body. She didn't just kiss over me, she made every muscle in my body obey her with her fingers and palms. Even as her tongue licked over my most delicate spots, she took great care in watching my reactions and listening to my moans, working her way into my mind, body, and soul to tie them all together in a heated frenzy of lust and desire. This was truly the work of a master succubus, and I was able to call her mine. Even as my cries echoed through the room, she didn't stop until I was floating on cloud 9. Her pleasure came from my moans and multiple releases, filling herself with my energy and devouring the pleasure we shared hungrily and lovingly. I was in heaven in a succubus's embrace. I barely could register her arms around my form as she held me close to her and kissed over my hair.
My sweet love, I will hold you close for as long as I can.
And I will be with you forever. My heart bluttered at the feelings ebbing within my chest. I was happy and I would keep this happiness close to me for as long as I lived. How long have I been recording for? 20 minutes. And how much did I record previously? I'll check that really quick. Let me just pause this. Alright, I have a little more time before I have to end the video, so we'll continue for now. I woke after a peaceful sleep staring at Diana as she leaned back against the bedpost, reading a book I didn't recognize. As I started to shift, Diana looked down at me and grew a loving smile.
Good morning, dear. Ready for today?
Despite feeling the tired effects of the morning, I nodded with a smile of my own. I could tell that today was going to be a good day. Diana closed her book and placed it on the table beside the bed before standing, stretching her body. However, mid-stretch, Diana froze. In fact, the entire room became frozen, as if time itself had stopped. Oh my god, no. Huh? Diana? I felt myself move freely, despite the air around me being still. I stood from the bed and walked around to Diana, seeing her frozen like a statue. What was going on?
Human.
My heart froze as I looked to see Sarah by the corner of the room, arms crossed and stare, cold as ice. What was he doing? Sarah, what are you—
Come with me.
Okay. Without another word, Sarah left the room into the hall. I was massively confused but followed, now worried what would happen if I didn't. As we walked down the hall, I was stunned to see every person in the castle frozen in time. How was this possible? How was Sarah doing this? Sarah was silent the entire walk. Eventually, we walked to the gold set of doors which led to the chamber her family was killed. I hesitated, staring warily at Sarah before seeing him open the chamber. To my surprise, the room changed from a nursery room full of blood to a view of an outdoor space. As far as I could see were trees and plant life, bustling and full of life. What the hell? Sarah stepped in and waited at the door, ushering me inside. I followed, despite every nerve in my body yelling at me to just run back. I had to see this through, whatever this was. Sarah led me into the forest of trees, making sure I was able to see him the entire time, until we reached a patch of land with a singular large tree, covered in pink and purple petals. Whoa. I found myself become entranced at the sight. What was this place? What was it here? As I examined the tree, I noted the major abundance of fruits in the branches. I smiled, knowing exactly what they were. Sweet flowers.
You know of them?
I nodded. Dinah gave me a slice of one in the human world. They're the best thing I've ever tasted. I could faintly remember the taste of it. It was perfectly sweet and moist. I was so full of energy after that day, I was hardly able to keep it all in. Sarah let out a small chuckle, drawing my attention.
I was barely walking when I had my first taste. My lady climbed the tree and picked it herself before splitting it open down the middle and giving me one of the halves.
I slightly smiled, imagining a young Diana and Sarah doing such a thing. As my gaze wandered to the tree, I spotted the crowns of Diana's parents and sister at the base, making me frown a bit. At the sight, Sarah let out a small sigh.
Tell me honestly, do you truly believe you can make her happy?
I looked up at Sarah, surprised at the question. His face was stern and serious as he gripped up his spear in a white-knuckle grip. Why was he asking such a question? With a nod, I took in a breath and stood up straight. I do. And I know you love her too. I didn't want us to fight over this like children. Yes, I loved her, but so did he. Who was I to push him away? After all, he had served her his entire life. Sarah stared hard at me, taking in what I had said before raising a spear, pointing it at me.
You truly love her?
I do. I'm sorry that upsets you. A moment passed. What would Sarah do? I prayed that he wouldn't strike me down. I hoped that he was willing to listen and compromise. A small chuckle escaped Sarah's lips, causing me to look up at him in confusion. His face painted his concern and his strange thoughts on this almost humorous situation. As he lowered his spear, he shook his head.
It doesn't upset me. I just want Azair to be happy.
As do I. Sarah locked eyes with me, gazing into my soul to judge my words for this truth. I was being honest, and truly, to know that both of us cared about and loved Diana was amazing to fathom. Eventually, Sarah smiled slightly.
Then, maybe it's best that we both try to make her happy.
Okay. I smiled and nodded, happy to know that he understood. This wasn't a contest, nor was this something to fight about. If we both loved her, then the best thing to do was to both shower her in the love we felt she deserved.
What is going on?
Oh, nothing. Sarah and I suddenly looked to the direction of Diana's voice, seeing her completely red in the face in anger. As she walked forward, Sarah bowed his head in submission.
My lady, I
asked Sarah if we could talk in private. Diana stopped walking and stared at me with the most confused look I had ever seen. I giggled a bit before stepping to her and taking her hand. We needed to chat about a little something. About you, of course.
About me?
I nodded with a grin before walking over to Sarah and placed a hand on his shoulder, making him look up at me. I lowered my hand and offered it to him, hoping him stand up before continuing. We are both in love with you, Diana. The look on Diana's face was both hilarious and adorable. Her face turned completely red as she darted her eyes back and forth between the both of us.
Azair.
Sarah took a step forward and took one of Diana's hands as I did the same with her free hand. Diana looked back and forth between us, now completely in shock and uncertainty. Sarah and I couldn't stop the smiles on our faces at the sight.
We love you and want you to be happy.
If it takes both of us to do it, then we'll happily do everything we can to ensure that happiness. My heart felt like I had made the right choice. Sarah loved her, and so did I. There was no need to lay claim to her when she was deserving of ultimate love. If this was something we could both provide, then it was well worth sharing. Diana's eyes began to water as she looked down and tried to catch her breath. Before Sarah and I could worry, however, she softly chuckled.
You both are such fools.
For a moment, Sarah and I became the ones confused. But as Diana looked back up at us with a happy smile and soft tears running down her cheeks.
I don't deserve either of you, let alone both of you.
That's where you're wrong. Oh my goodness. That's where you're wrong, Azair. I stepped forward and softly kissed Diana on the lips, making her gasp and stare at me wide-eyed. As I pulled away, I grinned. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Sarah stepped forward and placed a kiss of his own on Diana's lips, causing another gasp to erupt from her and make the blush on her face deepen.
And we would be honored to grant you that happiness.
Diana couldn't stop sobbing and covering her face with her hands. Sarah and I quickly rushed to her sides, embracing her and sandwiching her between our bodies. We didn't want to upset her. Her body shuddered between ours before she took in a couple of deep breaths, trying to calm down. Sarah and I, however, began to pepper her kisses along her hands and cheek, wanting to comfort her. It was hard to believe that we agreed on something, but Sarah and I both wanted the best for Diana, and both of our hearts wanted to be with her. As long as we were open about it, we would be okay. We were completely happy. The energy that sparked within Diana completely filled her with power, giving her the strength to completely annihilate the Demon Lord's army almost single-handedly. What many expected to take years to accomplish, Diana took days. Every attack the Demon Lord threw at us ended with him becoming utterly defenseless, soldierless, and powerless. Despite him managing to escape each time, we dwindled his troops to a mere handful of imp demons. Soon we had cornered him against a stretch of water called the Decaying Sea. In his castle, Sarah, Diana, and I stood atop a cliff top, staring down at the legions that gathered below us as we mentally prepared ourselves for what would be the final battle.
To think, this will finally be over.
Once it is, you will become the new queen of this world.
I looked over to Diana to see a soft glimmer of fear in her face. Was she not prepared for that responsibility? I took her hand, causing her to look over at me in surprise. As I nodded, I let a grin paint over my face. You'll be an amazing queen. Sarah smiled as well, taking her other hand and making her look over at him.
That you will, and we will support you until the very end.
Diana's face completely turned beet red as Sarah and I smirked at each other. We quickly leaned in and kissed both of Diana's cheeks simultaneously, causing her to gasp and straighten up like an arrow. During the time before the siege, Sarah and I managed to work out our differences and found ways to double team against Diana whenever she was spicy, stressed, or needed care. I had to admit we were the perfect duo. Diana shook her head violently and glared at both of us before pressing a kiss to each of our lips, causing us to shut up in the laughter as we released upon seeing her blush. Diana looked at the crowd and stepped forward, slightly arcing her back towards the legions below. And now's the time when somebody decides it's time to go mow the lawn or something, because, yeah, that really sucks. She was no longer just Diana, but she had become the mighty queen of the rebellion, one that I love with all of my heart.
Milites! Et hoc liberati esturei tramcun tuis omnibus conversiris! Sto vobiscum reducitic vos ad spem, nocte, lavabir mur, arcem, hostium sanguine! Ele diu dominati sunt nostri, noste struet, ium mitere, profundissimum, inferni detractos!
Burn the castle down? That's my interpretation. And something about Inferno. Basically burn this place to the ground, maybe? Diana summoned her saber, letting it shine brilliantly as the purple taint over her skin began to twist and turn. Before my eyes, the taint on her back took shape, lifting off of Diana's skin and morphed into her beautiful demonic wings. I watched with pride as Diana's body lifted off the ground and began to fly over the legion, slowly gliding towards the castle.
To war! To battle!
And that cry marked the dawn of change. The Demon Lord would end the age of the Demon Lord's tyranny and begin the age of united peace and prosperity. With Diana soaring through the air bowed to her and proved her worthy of such power. As I stared, time around me slowed as I took in everything that had happened. We were at the end of this war. Where would we truly go from there? Who knew? But I knew that I would be at Diana's side forevermore. I managed to seduce her into bringing me to a new world and experience everything. We were in love, and I was certain that she would become the beacon of life, not only for me, but for every demon in this world. After all, she managed to seduce me too. Heh. The Demon War was only the beginning of our lives together.
Well, you did it! Congratulations! You've made it to the end of your story. I have to say, I am very surprised at how it turned out.
That was fast. I guess no part 2. I guess we're just gonna go full on through to the end. Cool!
Nevertheless, I'm glad things worked out in the end, whether it was for the better or otherwise. I mean, come on. You got to be with a succubus and help her fight in a war. How crazy is that? You even got her to admit that she is in love with you. Go you! Demons are very hard to convince that you love them. Tell me about it, I know. Anyways, you've been through a lot, so why don't we skip to... Huh? You want to know what happened after the war? Well, I mean, I guess I could tell you. After the war was finished, the entire rebellion celebrated. Word spread far and wide about the rebellion's success, and soon every kingdom in the abyssal plains had become united with the new authority. You would think demons would be more hostile towards each other, being demons and all, but the threat of the Demon Lord was what brought the entire world together. The final battle between Diana and the Demon Lord became quickly one-sided, as he was no match for the power she had gathered from your love. Guess the power of love really does conquer all. Anyway, when the war ended, the entire rebellion celebrated as Diana presented his head to the masses like a trophy before burning it and letting the ashes sink into the ground.
Dang.
The day after, she became queen of the demon world. It definitely shocked her, and it took her a while to get used to being called Your Highness by the other demons, but you helped her through it. Well, you and Sarah, anyway. Both of you pretty much became her anchors and support the entire time through her coronation and beginning to rule the world. Sarah, being told of the deal she made with you, convinced you to stay in the demon world with them, so that you'd be with her for the rest of your life. Though, I didn't think it was hard to convince you, was it? You love the dickens out of her, come on! Still, from what I hear at least, the three of you live happily ever after. Huh? You don't believe me? Alright, check it out for yourself.
The demon world finally knew peace. It was a grand moment, the sounds of million cheers echoing and burning themselves in my memory in celebration for the end of the war. Diana had finally destroyed the demon lord, and soon enough we would watch her become the matriarch of the abyssal plains, uniting the— oh man! However, I was happy for Diana. I was proud to stand beside her and support her through it all. The war was an experience and a half, and I would never forget it for as long as I lived. As for me, I found myself drawn to Diana, hoping to spend every night with her in her arms. The human world became a faintly drifting memory as my life embedded itself in the demon world. Many demons questioned me, but Sarah and Diana defended me with every conflict that came. However, there was never a day that went by that I didn't wonder, did I make the right choice? It was a heavy chapter in my life, one that tested the love between me and Diana. My heart seemed to remind me that I had come to the demon world to help Diana, and now it was time for her to honor her end of the deal. She had to teach me everything about the 5 worlds and about magic. As a queen, that wasn't possible now. To my surprise, I didn't seem to mind. I had been given the experience of a lifetime, and I easily accepted it as a promise fulfilled. The faint memory of my own power slightly tingled through my every time I grew confident, eagerly reminding me that I had strength of my own. I would never let anyone come between me and Diana ever again. The thought of it all echoed in my mind as I laid in bed looking up at the ceiling with a wide smile on my face. Despite the dangers being real, the war was an adventure fun to look back upon in my memories. I took in a breath and let out a sigh, leaning back against the arm beneath my head and closing my eyes. I was at peace and everything was all right.
Are you okay, dear?
Aww. I opened my eyes at the sound of my pet name, looking up to see Diana smiling down at me. I could only giggle and cuddle into her embrace. I was just thinking about us.
Were you now? What about us?
With a smile, I nuzzled Diana's chest softly and closed my eyes, listening to her steady and loving heartbeat. How thankful I am to be here with you. Diana stared down at me, gently hugging me to her. I could feel her own joy at the situation resonate from her embrace and her kiss over my head. Sarah only chuckled as he laid on her other side, listening to us speak to each other. Sarah and I had gotten over our differences, and I was positive that we would be perfect together taking care of our demon queen. We both adored Diana and found each other both equally held close to each other, each side of her every morning.
I am thankful that you're here too. Both of you. You have done so much for me, and I will cherish you forevermore.
I believed every word. I let her words embed themselves into my heart, and I would remember them forever. As Diana hugged Sarah and I to her, the three of us let out a simultaneous sigh of contentment. I would love her and continue to hold her close for the rest of my life. Nothing would be able to tear me away from her any longer. And that was my perfect happily ever after. And I am thankful for you. See? I better write that down. But yay, we've made it to the end of Diana's route. This is probably not like, you know, the official ending, but this is the ending that, as in like, you know, like canon ending. Because I have a feeling that if it was canon ending, either Sarah would go crazy, or we'd have to kill him, or I don't know what happened to him, and he'd just be really depressed. And he deserves being happy. Come on, hurry up. But anyways, that concludes Seduce Me to the Demon War, Diana's route, which surprisingly wasn't that long. I guess that means we'll probably be going on to the alternate route. I mean, not alternate, like alternate endings, I guess. I'm probably not gonna do like the full thing. I'm probably just gonna skim through it and just show you the clip or something. I'm not sure yet. Still gotta decide on that. Anyways, this has actually been a pretty long journey. We started this back in like May, June. It is August. I think just as last year with the first part is like when Seduce Me first came out, like the first one, that's how long it actually took me. I think something like that. And yeah, so it's a good game. It had some nice moments, it had some sad moments, it had some frustrating moments, but all in the end it was a very good run. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!